Today was a solid and very excellent day, very family oriented day. And I'll get into why right now. So, it all started when I woke up. I got up at around like 10:30, and I remember when I got up out of bed, I walked into the living room and then into the kitchen to get some water. Now, after I got the water, I heard a knock at the door. I went over to open it, and it was our family friend. I greeted her immediately, and she said she needed some help bringing in some things, so I helped out. When she brought the food in, uh, she had just been to a grocery store, and one of the things she got was a soup called londigas, I think, and she asked me if I would like some. I accepted the offer because it looked quite good. I had this soup, which consisted of beef, broth, um, lettuce, and also corn on the cob. Had that, and it was very good. I very much enjoyed it. And she even made some tortillas for me, which I really liked as well. I thought those were really delicious, especially when you put the beef in the tortilla. They were mini corn tortillas. Delicious. Then I decided to start the oven for cookies. And I started the oven actually when I woke up, and then when I helped out the family friend, and we had the food, took the food out and put it back in the fridge, and she gave me the londigas soup, and we enjoyed each other's company. She went to her room. I got a pan out with parchment paper, and I immediately started to put the cookie dough out, roll them into balls, and I made about 4 chocolate chip brown butter cookies that had been in the fridge for about 3 days, which is the optimal length you want the cookies in order to obtain a extremely delicious flavor and texture. So I had the cookies on the sheet, and then the oven went off, and I put, letting me know it was fully preheated, and then I put the cookies into the oven. Um, After I closed that, I decided to go and find something to watch on YouTube. And what I found was a lady from a YouTube channel called In the In Between or something like that. And she was covering the scientist disappearances. I wanted to watch the video, even though I've seen a whole lot of videos about the scientist disappearances already, trying to be a detective and find, missing clues or pieces of the puzzle, or find things that would help offer a bit more insight into what's going on. And so I turned on this research video. I was watching it for about 10 minutes, and then the timer went off for the cookies. So I paused the video. I went and got the cookies. I took them out of the tray so they wouldn't burn at the bottom. It was 350 degrees for 12 minutes, by the way. And they were ready to go. They just need to cool down a little bit. So while they were cooling down, I made myself a cup of coffee. And then my sister had woken up. I greeted her and asked her if she would like a cookie. She said yes, and she got one. and she said they were very good. She really enjoyed them. So that was really nice and encouraging to hear. Now, after that, I got a cookie myself, and I got my coffee, and I went into the den, and I continued watching this video. My sister decided to go into the den and watch the video with me after I told her what it was and how I was hoping I would get some new information. So we watched it. It was very well put together, really comprehensive video about how a lot of these scientists worked near Albuquerque, New Mexico, or were part of similar like aerospace and military programs. Some of them seem a little coincidental, like a guy who was doing cancer research. That seems not as tied in with everything else, but a lot of these scientists do seem like they at least were related in terms of their professional setting of which they worked. So I thought that was interesting. Another interesting thing that I thought was new, or at least unknown to me at the time, was that the most recent disappearance of that general, who just left without his um, watch or his phone or his glasses, and you know, took his hiking boots and a revolver and new clothes. Um, Apparently, search efforts tried to find him with these security cameras in houses. No trace of him whatsoever. And then there was an aerial photograph shown of his exact location. And what was crazy to me was that there were at least a few houses that were surrounding his own home. And you're telling me there was absolutely no house near that area that would have been able to capture at least something? Like, my theory is that the reason why they can't find him in like the areas he hiked in was because he probably got picked up in a vehicle and then was driven off somewhere. I would imagine that would be the only explanation for why the search teams have been going on and on within these hiking areas, and they can't seem to find any trace of him. Probably because he's not in there. Maybe he literally like got picked up and driven somewhere else, and the whole like hiking into nowhere thing was done as a you know psyop to trick people into thinking that he just is a confused old man that decided to get lost in the woods. But yeah, I'm surprised that there's no security camera footage that like of any of the houses around his area that would have shown anything or indicated anything. That would be something definitely interesting to research. Um, then my mom gave us a call while we were in the middle of watching the video, told us she was on her way, and that she asked us if there's anything she could get. And I made the suggestion of, well, my sister, my middle sister is arriving later today, so we could watch some One Piece. How about we have like a dessert that we can have with her, like pie and ice cream? And so she was like, "Yeah, that sounds good." So she got some multi-berry pie and vanilla ice cream, and she also got a little extra snack, which was these red velvet cupcakes. And then she arrived home, put everything away, greeted her, and then she offered the cupcakes to us. I got one, and I gotta be honest, it's the kind of cupcake where they just put insane amounts of like sugar, like gobs of like frosting on top of it. I gotta be honest, I never understood the appeal of these desserts. Like, personally, for me, I like it when my frosting is like evenly divvied or distributed with the cake, because it feels like I'm getting an equal helping of both and not one thing is overpowering the other. And then another thing is I like it when my frosting is very airy and fluffy, and I don't like it when my frosting is really dense and like, thick. And then on top of that, I like my frosting to feel like lightly sweet. Like it's sweet, but it's not like overwhelmingly like diabetically sweet. And the problem with this one was that it was kind of overwhelmingly sweet. So it's the kind of cupcake where you just have this giant gob of like thick cream on it, with like that was really sweet. I don't understand why they sell these. Like, I don't know what the appeal of them is. Like, clearly people like them, or people are just apathetic towards them and they'll just take them because it says dessert on it. I'm not exactly sure, but personally for me, I'm not a huge fan of these types of cupcakes, because I just think the frosting is way too thick and way too sweet, and that's just a huge like thumbs down for me on that. Um, yeah, so we were talking with my mom, me and my sister was like telling her that apparently velvet was like actually just chocolate, but they make it red to make it seem like it's like a different flavor or something, or psychological effect, which I thought was an interesting observation. And then we told her what we were watching. She said, "Oh, I know that person. Yeah, I'll be down to watch that." So we all went to watch it. Before we used the restroom, I made coffee. I got the cupcake, and then we watched. And overall, it was pretty interesting. Um, Not gonna lie, a lot of what she said I've already known before, so I don't really want to say much more other than kind of just reaffirmed a lot of what I already knew. But my mom and my sister were doing some research. My sister did this research on this guy who apparently was a UFO disclosure advocate who was seen to have sadly left this world on his own accord, um, through police through police trying to stop him. But a few hours later, earlier, he was doing like a live stream where he said like, "Your life is precious. Don't ever think about, you know, doing anything crazy. Love what you have." And so, the fact that like he went through such drastic straits was crazy. I forget the name of this guy, but yeah, that was a story my sister shared. And then yeah, my mom was like doing her own research on like her phone. So yeah, pretty interesting overall. I don't remember exactly the research she was doing, but probably something having to do with the scientists and why they would disappear. Um, yeah, but I don't remember the answers. Anyways, after we had experienced that together, um, I me and my sister like had this extensive conversation about whether aliens were demons or not, after my sister wanted to show me and my mom this video of this like guy talking about like, aliens, and how like, you know he mixed like religion and the Bible and the events of that happened in the Bible in the past with like this phenomenon, and how he believes that it's an attack from Satan, and that you need to get right with the Lord in order to fight against these threats. Yeah, like I understand why like the spiritual angle is taken. I think it's really good to get multiple different perspectives on a single subject. Personally, I am more interested in the scientific angle of this phenomenon. I want to know what the implications for this phenomenon is in terms of like our place in the universe as like a species. Am I saying these are beings from another planet? I don't know. Um, I mean, they could be, but there's not enough evidence really suggests that that's the case. Could they be interdimensional beings? Could they be time travelers from the future who are like humans who had evolved to look different? And that's why a lot of these cases are like would explain why like they look like humanoids. I don't know the truth. I just like exploring this topic because I think it's a lot of fun, and it's just something interesting for me to sink my time into when I'm not working. But in terms of the whole religious angle, I mean, I feel like that's so like it doesn't really leave room open for questioning, in my opinion. It just feels like you're putting a definitive like label stamp on it, like demon, you know, and therefore stop because it's evil. And I don't know. I just don't. I don't really like the idea of like immediately labeling a phenomenon as like bad, so therefore you should not think any more about it. It just, I mean, could they be demons? It's entirely possible. I mean, anything's possible. I can't prove or disprove that they are or are not. So everything's up in the air as far as I'm concerned. But personally, for me, that angle isn't really that interesting for me. I just don't think it's like I don't know, applying a religious like spiritual context to the phenomenon. I mean, maybe you could make the argument, well, that's exactly what they want you to do. They don't want you to think that it's actually these spiritual demonic beings that want to, you know, take you for a ride or be evil. Like, and I suppose that's entirely, fair. But I don't know. I just like hearing stories about people talking about their encounters and see what they have to say. And I don't really take any of it as gospel. I don't take it as, oh man, this makes me really believe we're being abducted by aliens and all. No, no, I'm not saying that. What it does make me think is that, oh, this is interesting. This person either seems to believe that what happened to them really happened to them, or they're just doing this for attention and to make a quick buck and to convince people that they're special in some way, But yeah, we had a long conversation about that, and yeah, ultimately, I think it ended up going well. I then went out for a walk around the neighborhood, and I decided to have a chat with ChatGPT because I wanted to explore the idea of family lineages getting abducted, because apparently that's like a widely reported thing that happens in a lot of cases where supposedly like there are family lines that are followed by extraterrestrials where they follow each family line like member after the other, like the grandfather to the father and the father to the son and so on and so forth. um and that was the last like topic me and my sister were talking about, and I was like, I wonder what cases of abductions happen with our like generational alien abductions and what that could possibly say about the phenomenon. So I tried to talk to ChatGPT about that on my walk, about how like, okay, what are the most famous cases? And apparently it only could list like one. And then other time I tried to ask it about any other one, like it was like there's not enough data or evidence to talk about that, even though like apparently it is a really well known thing that happens in this phenomenon. I even brought up like a person who talks about these things happening, like guy named Preston Dennett, and then I tried like talking about like, ooh, what stories has he followed that have like dates and places and people and things, and it just like kept on redirecting and avoiding and going back to the most famous cases like the Betty and Barney Hill case, and you know they like another one I'm forgetting the name of, the something affair. But overall, it was just not really that helpful. I decided to just take the one popular case it kept on bringing up for some reason, like that, like it just wanted to not acknowledge that the phenomenon like targets like people generally. I'm not sure why that's the case. It kept on saying like, "Ooh, there's not enough evidence to support that, so it's just hearsay. So just people's imaginations and cultural, cultures like different cultural experiences and stuff." So I asked about the one abductee case that it decided to even mention, and it was like this lady who was of like her family was like of Scandinavian descent, or something like that. And like I asked questions about like, ooh, what would that mean? Like there some Nordic DNA in them, and like it said yes, there could be, definitely is Nordic DNA due to their family name they have. Um, and then like that made me think about, oh yeah, there's always those little like, stories about like the Nordics, right? That's apparently another species. And that made me think, wait, isn't the safest place on Earth like Iceland? So I asked about that. So yep, the safest place on Earth is Iceland. And I asked why. It's because they've got like really like good social structure, good education system, and everyone gets along, and like they trust each other so much. And apparently like mother can leave their kid like out at a coffee shop while they go inside to order a coffee, and then when they come back the kid's like still safe. Apparently that's like just their trust level there. They just are a really trusting and loving community that all gets along, and there's no like you know vitriol or very little. Apparently the only disaster thing there is like volcanoes, but that's about it. I just thought that was a really interesting insight. And it made me think about like the whole Nordic alien thing. It's like, wait a minute, the lady who got abducted, she said that like these beings took her on like a crystallized ship, and she reported these through her hypnosis sessions. And then like she mentioned like this book that had these symbols that she couldn't understand, and she tried to wrap her head around, but she couldn't understand what they meant. But she felt like she was deeply affected in a profound way. I don't know why, but she didn't describe the beings as being like the Nordic aliens at all. She described them as being very similar to tall grays. So overall, it wasn't exactly what I would deem a case where it was like there was clear evidence that like there were family lines being followed. It was just like a bunch of silly little theories in my head that I was poking around about, like what if like the Nordics originate from Norway and they're just following one of the Nordic family bloodlines to see what's going on. But if that's the case, then are they just Nordic people who have advanced technology for some reason? It gets really silly and ridiculous the further you know poke at that bear. But overall, because I was going absolutely nowhere with ChatGPT, and now it just kept on redirecting the conversation and just wasn't really interested in like discussing it further in a way that would like make for a interesting or fruitful conversation, I decided to put the device away. And then when I did that, I needed to use the restroom. When I was done, uh, my our family friend decided to give me a burger with fries, which honestly was pretty cool because I actually was in the mood for a burger with fries. So the fact that like that just was given to me for free by like our family friend was a really nice gesture, and I really appreciated it. I even let my mom and my sister have a bite of the burger, which, to be fair, was kind of a small burger. It was a single patty burger with lettuce, tomato, and wasn't shredless. It was full lettuce, so that was nice. And there was plenty of fries with gosh, what was it again? Ranch and ketchup. So I had that, and I had the last and Diet Dr Pepper. Reminds me of how I said Diet A&W in a previous video, but that was a false flag. It wasn't A&W. It was Diet Dr. Pepper that I had. So sorry for the misinformation over in that one of those previous videos. But anyways, I guess I was just really tired when I was making that video. So anyways, yeah, as I was eating the food, I turned on my phone and decided to find this video of a guy talking about this recent clear UFO footage that was filmed near a military testing site, supposedly. And he was like trying to do some research on it, like sending it through AI like video generator check to see if like it was generated. And based on what the generator could come up with, they said there was a 40% chance it could be generated. So less than likely, but still in the realm of possibility if it said 40%. So that's interesting. I don't know how much you could trust those things though, because like there are apparently students who stated they were never used ChatGPT and they give their assignment to their professor and their professor scans through an AI, you know, app to see if they used AI to write it. And even the ones who don't use AI or claim to not have used AI are told that like, oh, you used AI to write it, even though they claim they didn't. So, you know, I don't know how much you can trust those things that scan if it's AI or not. But I guess you're gonna have to take its word for it. Yeah. So that wasn't very convincing. Oh, I remember. I almost forgot to mention this, but earlier in the day, as we were watching the video of the lady talking about the disappearing scientist, there was one picture she showed of one of the scientists that was walking away on like a highway. It was super pixelated footage. It was like had shorts on and like long sleeve shirt. Looked like it was carrying a water bottle. And he had his hiking shoes on. And so we decided to take that pixelated image and try to up-res it using ChatGPT's image generator. It was funny. It saw the crack on the road leading up to his shorts and thought it was just a really long shorts string that was going off frame. So that was hilarious. Yeah. And the thing he was holding, ChatGPT thought it was a phone. I mean, I guess you could see why, but clearly, like, he left his phone in the report, so that probably was just a bottle of water, I would imagine. And yeah. Oh, I showed my sister, asked her what she thinks of the like image, and she said that based on the way the guy was carrying himself, it seemed like he was like tucking himself in, and he looked like really deeply unsure and like forlorn about his predicament. So I thought that was an interesting insight. So just something worth sharing. Okay, now we can jump back to watching the footage. British guy talking about it. After that was done, I finished eating the food. I threw away the trash. I washed the plate. I washed my hands, wiped my hands, and then I decided to watch this video made by a YouTube channel called Cinema Sticks about this Kevin Smith movie that had been kept from being released for a really long time until eventually it was released just recently. And I'm forgetting the name of this particular movie right now. All I know is that it has the guy who played Professor Snape in it. It has like Silent Bob and his friend that I'm also forgetting his name of. And it's like about like angels and demons. And it was like a movie that was like making commentary on like religion, and apparently it was somewhat controversial when it came out. Um, Basically, it was a movie about like how the film had been under lock and key for a really long time until eventually it was finally released, and it was kept the way it was without any special enhancements to get rid of like film grain or like dated CG effects or whatnot, and kind of like a reflection of like the time period or what it looked like at that point. So I just thought that was kind kind of an interesting deep dive. I'd never heard of the movie, but I know Kevin Smith. He like made the Clerks films, and they made some more experimental films, and then after that, he made a lot of movies that like are considered pretty bad and like just not the best. So he's got kind of a mixed track record. He started out like making stuff many would consider to be just cult classics, and then after his first few batches, he started to make stuff that was highly questionable in quality, and it makes you wonder what the heck happened to his brain afterward. Maybe he did too much devil's grass. I don't know. Um, yeah, but yeah, interesting video by Cinemasticks. Interesting thing was he was talk whenever he mentioned this disgraced film producer Harvey Weinstein, he would always bleep out his name, but except for this one line where it says the Weinstein Banking Company. I'm not sure if he didn't bleep that word like time where he used Weinstein out because it was like helped to label a real like company, and you can't like blank it out because then it would be hard to understand what he's talking about. Or maybe it was because he just wanted to create a reason for people to comment in his YouTube comment section to increase viewer engagement. Because a lot of people do that intentional rage bait where they do something that's intentionally misinforming or attention grabbing within the video. And anyone who takes the time out of their day to watch the video might notice that discrepancy, and then they're like, you forgot to do this. Why didn't you do that? But little do those people know that they're actually playing into the video maker's favor by creating engagement, because I think a lot of video creators know that people think they're the first one to ask that question, so they're going to answer without checking the comment section to see if someone else has asked that question or made that statement, and then your viewer engagement goes up, you get more eyes in the algorithm, and the more people see it, and the more people probably are willing to comment about that kind of stuff. So it's I would say it's kind of a dishonest way of getting engagement, but also it does seem to work because a lot of people do it. So I guess whatever puts bread on the table, right? I don't know. I think it's kind of lame. Shouldn't you make people like, or not make? Shouldn't you encourage people to be curious about what you're talking about and comment your video based on something that's like actually like informative or inspiring or like meaningful? Why are you trying to engage with people by intentionally misleading or tricking them? I just think that's kind of gross, not gonna lie. But technically that guy wasn't misinforming or mislabeling. He was giving out like genuine information, but at the same time, uh, I don't know. I guess it's a smart way of doing viewer engagement. It depends on how it's done. It has to be done tastefully. Like technically, he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't misinform. So I suppose that in that instance, it was okay for Cinemasticks. And just saying that does happen. Anyways, yeah. After watching that, I was getting kind of fatigued from watching stuff on my phone. So I went into the living room and I asked my mom if she would be interested in continuing to make that ant video that she was interested in making. So I was like, okay. She was like, okay, yeah, I have like some notes in my car. So I tried to open the car, but all the doors were locked. So she went to find her keys. She opened the door. She got her notepad that had scenes and ideas in it. So we went into her room to work out the storyboard. However, her TV was making like sounds like of a guy talking about like quantum computers in space. And so we spent a long time trying to find the remote because it was hard to think with that sound on. And we eventually did find it and turned off the TV. And she was reading me her ideas about what she thinks we should do. She was talking about like ants in a row and like a bird dropping like a crumb of cookie on them, and they're taking the crumb and like passing it all the way down the row until they get to like the queen and throw like the queen area where she like eats the cookie crumb. So and then she said like, what if the ants are carry like apples, bananas, and like a Tonka truck? And so like I did a little basic storyboard of the apple, banana, the Tonka truck. I took a picture of each frame, and then I used ChatGPT's image generator to make like these frames. The basic drawings look like finished like animation cells from like 1940s Disney cartoon. And then I went on Grok and tried to present those images and see if it could animate them. It took so long, and we went through so many different generations, and we came across some that were okay looking, but overall, like some weird things, like the ants were having like an arm coming out of their chest. It was really weird. Even though some of it like looked okay, other than that, like a lot of it looked glitchy and weird. Clearly, this technology is still in its infancy, but I'm sure it's going to get better as time goes on. Well, anyways, after after doing that, my middle sister, had arrived. Um, our family friend made chicken. She actually asked me to preheat the oven. I preheated the oven like a good 2 hours before my sister showed up, and then she put our family friend put the chicken in, and then my sister prepared some potato balls, put them in the air fryer, and then we all greeted my sister. Um, and we just had a really good time. We were talking about like the missing scientists and like how we don't really trust what's going on, and how it seems really scary that all this stuff is just happening all at once. And apparently my middle sister has like a friend who has the same name as me, who's like believes like something spooky is going to happen in the next 3 or 4 months, and he highly recommended getting like shelf stable food, like canned food and stuff. So I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. Wonder why he thinks that. Um, and yeah, we just had the food prepared. We got the chicken, we got the green beans, with butter on it. The potato balls were done, but they weren't fully ready because I took a bite out of one of them. It like was still hard in the middle and it tasted like ground. Like apparently potatoes, when they're not fully cooked and are still hard in the middle, they taste like ground, which is not great. Um, so put them back in the oven. The you know in the back uh, air fryer oven, and then we just ate the food and enjoyed each other's company. After we're done, I threw out the trashes because tomorrow's trash day. I took the trash out into the front. I also took out the bathroom trashes as well as the kitchen trash because that was full. I had to throw away all the trash that was around the kitchen trash. So there you go. And yeah, then me and my middle sister played this game of like ninja, where like you bow and then you do a ninja stance, and then you're only allowed to move when the other person moves. And the goal of the game is to like have the other person hit your like arm first. So like if you try to get someone's arm, they move and they can dodge, or they can get your arm, and whoever loses both their arms first loses. Whoever gets the two arms or at both arms first wins. And as long as you have at least one arm, you're still in the game. So that was fun to do. I really enjoyed that a lot. And yeah, we ultimately, I turned on the oven for the pie. I put the pie in the oven, and yeah, we just hung out. We talked about like how life's going, and like my sister's going to cons to sell her wares, and that was really cool to hear. Really awesome. Really proud of her. And yeah, we eventually went into the den. We're showing this scary footage of like the new ant video me and my mom are working on using AI. My sister thought it was pretty spooky, and that the ant, I mean, the bee version of my mom looks like Gollum for some reason, which is hilarious. And then we eventually found the next One Piece episode we were on, and we started watching. Before we did, though, I took the pie out of the oven and it had to cool down before we could dig in. So we watched what essentially were the final 3 episodes of this arc, which was the restaurant in the middle of the sea arc, where there was this like bad guy. I'm forgetting his name right now. I think his name was, oh man, he was like an armor, like golden armor, yeah, like Don Craig, I think was his name. Yeah, I think his name was Don Craig. Essentially, we go to the story where Don Craig is very much wanting the floating restaurant, but Luffy's threatening to destroy the restaurants, because if the restaurant's destroyed, then Don Craig doesn't have any um, like anything to fight for. But everyone else who lives in the restaurant's like, "What the heck, Luffy? What are you thinking?" And Luffy's like, "Well, you guys value your lives, right? Shouldn't you value your lives more than this restaurant?" And they're like, "We need this restaurant to operate, survive. Gosh dang it!" So that's pretty funny. And then there was like this guy who, at the very start of the arc, was like dying of hunger, and like the guy in the like blonde hair and the black suit gave him like food, and like he was very happy for his kindness. But then he brought this pirate horde on the restaurant, and essentially, like, he is very loyal to Don Craig. This guy, he's like a second in command, and Don Craig wants him to take out the blonde haired dude. Um, so he decides he's gonna take him out. Um, but then, like, when he could easily launch his final blow, he decides against it, because he feels it's a moral obligation to spare his life, because he spared his with the food, and so he'd feel bad about it. So Don Craig's like, "Oh, this is such a wimp. I'm gonna launch this gas on you." And so everyone around the area who's like hanging out in the water, like, and including and Luffy, like, who's on the ship, and everyone, it's like they put on these gas masks to protect them from this, like, deadly gas. But the one guy who doesn't is like the Don Craig second command, who looks like he's about to die. So Luffy has had it with Don Craig's nonsense, so he decides to run over and he's gonna kick his butt. And Don Craig tries to explode him, doesn't work. He tries to put up a spiky shield, doesn't work. And despite Luffy constantly getting like sharp bullet wounds and digging his fist into a really spiky shield, he ultimately knocks out Don Craig, but Don Craig hasn't been fully knocked out yet. So he decides to go ahead and use his spear, which apparently the tip, like, is explosive. So every time something hits the end of the spear, it explodes. And despite hitting Luffy multiple times, Luffy survives each and every attack. Guy's built like a bullet. And he decides to break his spear. And then the guy, he's like trying to like uses explosive spear to take him down, even though he doesn't have the spike anymore. And ultimately, Luffy does a bunch of punches that ultimately cracks his armor and breaks it apart. But he decides to take Luffy down with him into the ocean, and Luffy decides to use his special rubber body powers to knock Don into the floating restaurant boat, completely knocking him out cold. But then it goes deep underwater. So the chef of the ship tells his adopted son, "Yo, you should go save him since he saved your life." And oh my gosh, you're right. So he goes and he swims all the way down to pick up Luffy from the bottom. Kind of reminded me of the end of the live action Lilo and Stitch movie, which pretty funny. Maybe that's where they got the idea for the end. But anyways, he swims up to bring Luffy back in. Turns out Luffy was didn't die, but just fell into deep rest. And then there was this the second command survived the gas and ended up coming to. However, Don Craig, despite looking like he was completely knocked out, he decides to get up because he doesn't like the idea of losing to Luffy, so he's gonna give him a what for. But then, to put a final end to the argument, the second command, who disobeyed Don's orders and saved the life of the chef guy, ultimately knocks him out and assumes the role of the new captain of the crew. And they ask for a boat to help carry them along on their adventure. And the second command is the new chief. And so they do give him a boat. And the funny visual gag here is that all the pirates are just dogpiled onto the boat. It's hilarious. And then they go off away into the great blue yonder. And then the final episode for this arc was essentially Luffy wanted the chef guy to be part of his crew. He's like, nah, I want to stay on the ship, be with my crew. But man, to go into the Grand Line, that would be such an adventure. And his adoptive father, chef, overhears the whole conversation. It's time to orchestrate a little conspiracy with my other co-chefs to convince him to go into the Grand Line. So they're all eating this food, and they're all sitting on these seats, and then they intentionally tell both Luffy and the chef guy to sit on the floor instead, and then they're eating, and then they pretend the soup that the chef guy made is the worst thing they ever made, or he made, and they don't like it at all. So he just decides to leave. But then Luffy's like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. This soup's amazing. And they were like, yes, we do agree. It is amazing. We were just putting on a show to trick the chef dude into going with you on an adventure, so he has less of a reason to be here. And then it turns out the chef guy walks in and hears everything through the doorway, and then is like, wow, okay. And then eventually he sees a shark coming in, and the shark has a guy in the shark mouth, and he jumps on into the restaurant, and is like, oh my gosh, I was gonna be eaten by the shark, but I'm safe. And then they were found out that Luffy's friend is safe and sound, and they're gonna go check in on her. And before they do that, the chefs wanted Luffy to accept the chef guy as part of his pirate crew, but he said no because he wanted to get the official yes from him before accepting, because he can't accept on his behalf. So the guy, he says, I overheard you guys. You were really bad actors. And by the way, Luffy, I do accept because I've always wanted to go on this adventure. It's like, oh, thanks. And so everyone's like, what? Oh my gosh. And so, the guy, the end of the episode's the chef guy reminiscing ever since he was like a kid about like growing up on the ship, being taught by the main chef pirate dude, and ultimately like a very sentimental episode. Um, and so when he decides to leave, he turns around. Well, he's about to get attacked by like the two sous chefs, but he immediately dodges their attacks and like he goes off. He turns around, he gets really emotional. He yells out at the sea pirate captain. He's like, "Oh my gosh, you gave me such a wonderful time. I'll be forever grateful for your kindness." And then everyone else is like starts crying too. So even though like they all try to put on that tough guy persona, they all really love each other and care about each other. And not gonna lie, this episode did bring a bit of a tear to my eye. I thought that the whole him enjoying like the time he had at the restaurant, but then ultimately making this big life altering decision to go off into this great yonder, but being very sad about having to say goodbye to these people he's had long standing relationships with was a pretty touching moment. It honestly kind of reminded me of the whole coworker leaving my the job thing yesterday, and this episode kind of reflected that. It's similar to how the Fallout thing reflected the whole missing scientists and nuclear fusion thing last night. It's kind of weird how all that kind of seems like it's like lined up, even though it's just coincidences. But yeah, in a way, it's like fiction's representing reality, which is reality also representing fiction. It's crazy, but kind of cool too. Yeah, that was the end of the episode. And that's the end of the arc. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very cool. Thought it was very funny. I thought it was very action packed, and I thought it was very emotionally touching and sweet and sincere. I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. So after we're done watching that, my mom packed a meal away for my middle sister. We all said good night and sang a little song, wishing her well on her travels. She went in her car. When we went into the house, we realized she forgot her packed meal. So I grabbed it and ran out to let her know. And she thanked me. We hugged, kissed, said goodnight, and that we love each other. She drove off, and then I went into the kitchen. I helped clean, throw away some uneaten pie crust, and then washed the dishes and put them away. And then everyone went off to do their own thing. I played some Disney's Epic Mickey on my PlayStation 5. I noticed that the motion blur, I was sitting closer up to the screen, and the motion blur made the image look really mushy to me. So I decided to turn the motion blur off, but then I noticed the image looked a little bit on the still slightly mushy side. So I turned on OLED Motion Pro on the LGC1, which is essentially black frame insertion, which inserts a frame between each and every 60th of a second frame. And what this does is it greatly improves something called motion clarity on an image on a television display, which is essentially when you move a camera in a three-dimensional space that's running at 60 hertz, it looks much smoother and less persistence blur to the eye, which makes it look just ultimately more convincing to the eye that it's like a smooth and believable movement and action happening. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's it helps greatly when the closer you are to the display. When I'm farther away from the display, I don't notice stuff like persistence blur or motion blur causing things to look mushy as much because it's so far away that my eyes like can't discern the difference. But when I'm sitting closer to the screen like I was tonight, I definitely did notice it. And so that's why I put on that change. So it helps make the visuals look more um, made them look better. And as I was playing it, I was listening to a new Jesse Michaels video where he was interviewing this former NSA officer who wrote 2 books about, UFOs and secret artifacts. And I gotta be honest, this one wasn't that really that interesting. Basically, it was like the guy just presenting a bunch of what ifs and maybe yes, maybe no's, and then he says yo's, and like just a bunch of you know hypotheticals and what if this was that, but nothing that really told me this guy knew anything more than the general public knows, and it wasn't. The most interesting thing he said was that the one of the main reasons why we don't get more UFO footage or images disclosed to the public is because the technology that's used to witness these craft uh, is so advanced that if enemy adversaries knew that we used this technology to monitor craft, they would know how to, protect their assets by not having them be seen by our, monitoring technology. So advanced monitoring technology. So in that case, I totally would understand why the government would be apprehensive about disclosing certain UFO footage or images. Maybe it's because the technology used to capture those images would reveal like our hand of cards to the other adversaries, and they would know what's up our sleeve, and so they would do whatever they could to counteract that. So that makes a lot of sense the way the guy explained that. That was the one tidbit information where I was like, okay, that's kind of that makes sense, and that's interesting observation, I will say. And that's about like the only thing where I'd say it was like worth like listening to that. Everything else was basically just, oh, I mean, I have a book and I talk more about this in my book, and you should read my book. And in the words of Hecklefish, there's always a book. I mean, hey, at least it's just like he's presenting it as hypotheticals and not cold, stone cold fact. You could easily just say, "Oh, well, this really happened to me, so therefore it's real." No, so I appreciate that on that front, but on the same hand, it just feels like manipulative. Yeah, after I was done playing the some Epic Mickey, I where I was uh, at the end of the ride level, and then I saw one of the Pete's, and then I was in the Gremlin Village where I fixed all the Gremlin houses, um, and played like the Clock Tower like minigame, and that was where I last left off. I decided to watch this video on YouTube about a guy who's doing research on like why he was explaining how DMT was a simultaneously scary but also a fascinating substance. It's from a YouTube channel called Psych Substances. Um, it talks about psychedelics. I find that topic interesting when it comes to stuff like DMT because it's like the one like thing where many people claim they've seen similar things and like how it could just open your mind to a new radio wave of like consciousness and like how that might like help us explore consciousness in a new way. I guess that was another thing that was interesting about that podcast with Jesse Michael and that other guy, NSA officer, that consciousness could just be like unending and our bodies are literally just like radios receiving like the waves that these bodies can understand in this realm we're living in. And like even Jesse Michaels mentioned David Foster Wallace, which I wasn't expecting at all, about how fish don't really stop and ask about what's this water thing we're in anyways. They just continue swimming and act about their day. And in a way, the water for us as humans would be like time. And is time like just a construct, or is it something that can be manipulated? Just there's a lot of interesting what if scenarios. But anyways, I kind of got off track there. The psych substance guy, he was basically just saying, it's scary because it forces you to confront and have an ego death, so you can truly understand what it's like to be one with, this uh, unending feeling of a new reality. It was a pretty interesting video. The one thing he mentioned was like a laser experiment where some people decided to take this substance and then look at like lasers at different angles, and then they noticed like these patterns, like these matrix like letters going down by looking at the lasers at a different angle. Everyone saw the same exact thing every single time, which I thought was really interesting. I don't know if there's another substance that's ever done that to people, where they all see like code falling through these red, like, laser lights like on a wall. But apparently that's what was discovered. I don't know what that means or if that's indicative of anything, but I thought it was interesting nonetheless. I then ate some cereal. I had some Cheeto pickle puffs. I took some vitamins, magnesium. I brushed my teeth, and then I decided to go in here and record this video. So that's pretty much my day in a nutshell. As you can see, it was a day that was filled with a lot of exploration into missing scientists, into potential like family lineages getting abducted by UFOs, to valuable family time being spent, to watching some One Piece, to listening to Jesse Michaels' podcast while playing some Epic Mickey, to trying to understand what's going on with the whole DMT thing, to just eating a bunch of snacks. So, yeah. Oh, and it was, oh, and I almost forgot. During the second episode we watched of One Piece, we had some pie and ice cream, and I had some coffee, and that was pretty good. So yeah, that's pretty much the day in a nutshell. So yeah, that's about all I have to say. Thanks for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everybody, and have a good night, or day, or morning.